You're gonna find yourself on your roller if you've got one on the blocks. Otherwise, this is Cindy. Our usual routine is that we start on the roller, and most of the people who come to class remotely seem to have rollers. That's been really good. And then you can just let your arms drop out to the side. Your head, your full spine, and your tailbone all be supported. And then you're just gonna breathe. And let it go, whatever it is, whatever stress or strain or your long car trip, whatever you got, see if you can breathe it out a little bit. And when I'm on the roller, I like to imagine myself sort of melting over the roller or draping over the roller, like my body is a little bit more gelatinous than it actually is, so it can kind of like just really flop. And then we'll start moving through the arms first, circling the arms up toward the ceiling, overhead, aiming for the floor overhead if you can, and then bringing your arms down to meet the floor and come around to the side. So this is just a big circle with the arms. Feeling, if you're on the roller, and really if you're on the blocks too, the shoulder blade movement. When we move the arms all the way around their full range of motion, they can only do that because the shoulder blades move. If the shoulder blades didn't move, your range of motion would look something like this, right? It would be small. It's the shoulder blades rotating, elevating, protracting, retracting that allow the arm to move as much as it does. That combined with a very open joint. We've talked about that before, how while the hip joint has a ball and socket, right? It's very secure. It's hard to dislocate a hip without serious trauma. The shoulder is much less stable. It's more like this, right? If this is the arm bone, here's the top of that bone in the socket, and it's just a little cut. It's like a golf ball on a tee, say, sideways, and held in place by all the soft tissue. So let's reverse that circle. Which way are we going? This way now, right? So the arms overhead, come up toward the ceiling, down towards your hips, and then out to the side, snow angeling around. And I like this to start out pretty loose, not too worrying too much about form issues per se, but you might start to pay attention to what's happening in your rib cage as you circle, especially as your arms go overhead. Do you notice that your rib cage flares up and open a lot? Do you lose the contact that your ribs have with the back of the roller as you circle around? I'm going the wrong way now. There we go. And don't change anything really, just notice. If you find that your ribcage moves a lot, then that might be a place that you want to start to work on and really start to pay attention. So let's come back up to the top. And this time, we're going to think about the ribs. So go ahead and take your hands onto the rib cage. So you are, right now, I'm pretty high. So the heels of my hands are on the ribs in the front, and then my fingertips are meeting just at the base of my sternum, right? So that sternum is your breastbone, right at the base of the sternum. And I'm just going to breathe a couple of breaths here. So just inhaling and exhaling and feeling what happens. You could try a couple of more forceful exhales. So you inhale, exhale, blow it out really aggressively, and feel how much connection happens here. So your abs, sort of side job of your abs is to help with a forceful exhalation. So if you needed to breathe out really strongly, your abs contract to help that happen. So if you ever feel like you're not connected to your abs, that's a way to kind of check into that. Inhale, exhale, and feel that contraction happening under your fingers. So that contraction this way, plus a little bit of contraction this way. So you want to feel those little pokey rib points here at the front, and then the pokey hip bones at the front. You want to feel like those are pulling together without any kind of physical movement happening. We just want the muscles to be doing the work. So I'm contracting here. I'm not rounding forward or crunching. It's just to get these guys engaged. So now we're going to go back to that circle with this little bit of engagement. So keeping engagement this way at the ribs. So the ribs coming in and down toward the hips. As you take the arms overhead, prioritize keeping this the same. It might mean that your arms won't go quite as far overhead, and that's fine, right? So I just want you to do a couple of circles in each direction, really thinking about that rib position And the reason that we care about rib position, rib cage position, is that aforementioned shoulder blade position hinges on where the shoulder blades are on ribs. So if your ribs are really curved forward, then your shoulder blades can't move the same way. So try a few in the other direction, really right here, especially when the arms are overhead, keeping that connection here. So as you go around, as the arms go overhead, keeping this contracted, you might feel that extra little stretch in here as you do that. One more time. And bring the arms up toward the ceiling. You're gonna glide the shoulder blades forward and then back. So by forward, I mean forward on your body toward the ceiling. So the shoulder blades are gliding forward on the ribs, and then they're gonna go back, which means that your shoulder blades are gonna pinch down around the roll. You're not moving up toward your ears at all. So gliding forward on the rib cage and then squeezing the shoulder blades down. The arms staying relatively straight here. Fingertips stay pointing at the ceiling the whole time. So it's a small movement, not a big arm movement. And here, as you pull the shoulder blades down, notice what happens to your ribs. Sometimes as people do that, the ribs want to pop out. They want to go like this. So can you squeeze your shoulder blades down onto the ribs or onto the roller and keep the ribs in place? And then we're going to take this movement, this forward and back movement, and turn it into a full circle of the shoulder blade. So the arms are going to go up. The shoulder blades now come up to the ears. They go back down, squeeze the roller, and then down toward the hips. So you're getting the full range of motion of the shoulder blade. A circular movement. And then reversing that.
I think I can.
And if you have any questions, feel free to ask either Astrid or me.
Okay.
Circling it around. And then let's go ahead and drop the arms out to the side. As we're talking about shoulder blade movement, let's do one side at a time. So one arm's gonna just stay in place kind of by your side, give you a little bit of stability. And then the other arm is gonna go palm up, and you're gonna just snow angel it out to the side. And what I want you to notice is what's happening with your shoulder blade as you move out to the side. So up to about here, you probably won't feel very much, but as you start to move up overhead, I feel the inside border of my shoulder blade against the roller because it's rotating upward, right? So other side, just sort of to feel what that feels like. You may notice, for me, my left side feels really different than my right side because that's my more interesting side, let's say. Got more stuff going on. And then bring the arms back down. Go ahead and let them come out to the side. And if you want to bend your elbows a little bit to increase the stretch at the chest, you can. Somebody who is really, really open through here might be able to put their arm in a full cactus and drop all the way to the floor. I cannot. I can get my hands to the floor in that position, but that's it. So just exhaling, a little bend in the elbow, straight arm, whatever feels good to you, whatever's giving you the nice stretch through the chest. And then go ahead and roll off your roller and push it out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and flip over onto the belly. And so Cynthia was saying a little bit of back crankiness and having just done the long drive, and I bet everybody can probably benefit from a little bit of back steps. So we will come down into what I call a relaxed cobra position. So it's a little bit like a yoga cobra, but more relaxed, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to come down onto the belly with the elbows down, right underneath the shoulder blades. I'm going to think about my head just continuing the line of my spine as it comes out of my ribs. And I'm going to keep my shoulders active. So I don't want to get all slumpy in my shoulders, but I'm going to let all of this relax. So I'm going to let my feet be a little bit wide. I'm going to see if I can let go of my glutes. Sometimes I just do a little bit of rock back and forth to see if I can assist that, or a little jiggle of the legs to try to let everything go. And then I'm going to let my belly drop down to the ground. So again, the shoulders are going to stay active just to keep you in a good position. But we're letting the muscles along the spine of the low back go on slack, right? They spend most of the time holding on for dear life. So we want to give them a break. So you guys stay here. Because most of us live, whether we're standing or sitting, we tend to live a little forward of our center. So when we're a little forward here, what happens here is that these muscles are like iron cables because they're holding us up, literally, right? So if these guys are holding us up, these guys are kind of turned off because they're in a disadvantaged position. So a lot of times just moving the rib cage back so that it's right over the pelvis can help these guys to soften up. When these guys are tight, this is one of my very favorite things to do for them. Sometimes it's tough, and sometimes when I first did this position, it actually feels a little bit uncomfortable. And then I give myself a couple of breaths to get into it. If I don't ever get comfortable, if I take 4 or 5 breaths here and I don't get comfortable, then I know that this is not the position for me today. So I might choose instead to try to relax my back by going into a position like this and putting my legs up on a couch or a stool or something, so that I can let the back relax by letting gravity assist there too. Either direction works. So we're gonna, since we're already here, we're gonna go ahead and drop into a little bit of a shoulder blade activity here. So right now we got our shoulder blades in a nice, a good position, right? We're gonna inhale and we're gonna go to the bad place, right? Get schlumpy, let the shoulders come up into your ears, let your chin jut forward, whatever happens, right? And then you're gonna exhale, and this time you're gonna scoop the belly up off the mat by contracting your abs, push through the elbows, pull the shoulder blades down and back slightly so that your head and neck get nice and long. Inhale, let it all collapse. And then exhale, press down through the elbows, extend through the neck, open the collarbones nice and wide across the front. Inhale, bring it down. Exhale, take it up. My pelvis is staying down, so I'm not trying to come up into any kind of a little knee plank or anything. Pelvis is still down, belly lifting up. And I can think about those ribs, that same rib position we thought about at the beginning. The ribs pulling in and down. As I lengthen your spine. One more time. And exhale. Good, and then just go ahead and come all the way down. Make a little pillow out of your hands, and you can either turn your head to the side or you can drop your forehead down in your hands, whichever feels better to you. So you're going to take a couple of breaths here. And as we're breathing here, the belly is constrained against the mat, so the breath has to go somewhere else. So ideally, it's going to go into your back and ribs. So if I came around and pushed on your rib cage, every time you inhaled, you would be physically pushing my hands apart. So that's all we're going to do right now is breathe. So relaxing as much as you can in this breath. You're going to inhale, expand your ribs, and exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Exhale, release. As you're breathing, trying to expand the ribs as wide and as much to the back as you can. So if I were looking at your ribs from the front, I would see movement this way. If I was looking at you from the side, I would see movement this way. So a couple more breaths here, inhaling and exhaling, really feeling that movement of the ribs. You can think this too, that's one of the things that I like to think is that the little muscles in between the ribs are called the intercostals. And those, just like any other muscle, can get really tight and they have a bunch of layers, just like the abs do. So as you take that big inhale, one of the things you can think about trying to do is I'm trying to stretch those muscles in between the ribs and then releasing, letting them go again, right? Stretch those muscles in between the ribs as you inhale and then let them come back in. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Inhale and let it out. Inhale, expand, and let it out.